Let's reverse the order this time. Let's start with Lou and we'll come over this way.
That's a good question. The legislation that I want to see for small businesses is just tax breaks. I support allowing small businesses to work together. In fact, I have to give a compliment where a compliment is due. Congressman Knight introduced a bill that allows small businesses to work together so that they can obtain bigger contracts that might not be eligible for. But I want to see that done even better, where you can work for a government contract and not have to partner with another business, where the parts of the contract can be pulled out and you can go for that part of the contract. So it's not all to one, all or nothing, so to speak.
Congressman?
Well, I will take another minute on this because there is so much to talk about when you're talking about small business, but we are authoring and we are going to present our Aerospace Innovation Act. And the Aerospace Innovation Act basically looks at the small businesses in aerospace all the way up through the large businesses that affect aerospace and working on the roadmap that we see for the next 50 years. If we don't start talking about that, then it is a quilt work. We're doing this, we're doing that, we're not funding this, we're not funding that, but we're funding this. We worked with Jae-Won Shin, he's in charge of all aeronautics for NASA, and we built this roadmap. If this roadmap continues to go and we fund things like hypersonics and a supersonic modulator that will get us across this country in 2 hours and get us to Tokyo in 4 hours, if we can do those things, it benefits this area tremendously. It's not all about Lockheed and Northrop. It is about all of the companies that we go to, the ADIs, the Megats, all of the companies that are throughout this district.
Thank you.
This is one of the things that I think is frustrating to so many people when we look at politicians in Washington who just keep focusing on the wrong priorities, who just keep giving handout after handout to the biggest banks and the wealthiest corporations while forgetting that small businesses are the lifeblood of our economy. So we need to make it easier to get more expanded small business administration loans. And that's why when the Porter Ranch gas leak happened, I was one of the first people calling for an emergency declaration so that the businesses who were affected by the Porter Ranch gas leak, because when thousands of people leave, that hurts your business, they were able to get loans to come in at a low interest rate and help them. We need to do that on a broader scale. We also need to make sure that SBDC here at College of the Canyons is fully staffed, fully funded, and is there available helping the small business entrepreneurs who are in this community to make sure they can cut through the red tape and continue creating the great jobs that push this community forward.
Thank you.
Would you defy your party leadership to help ease the toxic atmosphere in Washington?
We're going to start here with Brian. If you couldn't hear it all, he said, would you defy your party leadership to help end the toxic atmosphere?
Absolutely. You don't go to Washington in order to represent a party. You go to represent the people in the community, and you need to do what works best to move the community forward. That's why it was so disappointing when Congressman Knight a few years ago said that he doesn't think partisan is a bad word, and he doesn't want to reach across the aisle. I think that's wrong. We need to have a representative who goes to Washington, to the community, consider the issues, stand up to the corporate special interests, and making sure that you are voting for and bringing forward the best possible solutions, regardless of whether it's a Democratic idea or a Republican idea.
Thank you. Steve?
Interesting. I served in the California State Senate as a representative, as a Republican representative. In those 2 years, I passed more legislation than any other Republican senator in California. You cannot do that in California unless you have a lot of Democrat friends. You cannot do that without reaching across the aisle. It's impossible in California. Secondly, if we move forward to, let's look at scorecards. What are happening out there right now? There's about 100 scorecards. Many of them are very, very conservative scorecards. Look up my conservative scorecards and you're going to find that I have voted against my party several times. In fact, about 50% of the time on major issues. So I have reached across the aisle and I have said, if it is a good idea, then I'm going to listen and we're going to work with it. So my record stands clearly that I have reached across the aisle.
Let me step in and just interrupt. Give us one of the major issues in which you defied your party leadership. Just one.
Oh, absolutely.
Or two if you want.
Exxon Bank. Exxon Bank is a perfect example. I was one of the 43 signatures. I was one of the only Republicans to step forward and say, if we don't reauthorize the Exxon Bank, then our businesses are going to be at a competitive disadvantage. There's no doubt about that. We are going to be losing contracts, and the other 87 countries that do these types of procedures and have these types of banks will have a competitive advantage over us. So I absolutely stood forward and I signed on the dotted line.
Lou?
Thank you. Thank you for the question, because it is of defying my party leadership. I've been asked to drop out of this race by the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee so they can run their candidate, so they can bring their candidate in and run him in this race. I'm running for you. I'm running for the community, and I'm going to always fight when I'm representing you. I'm not trying to buy this seat. So when someone like my party leadership asks me to drop out, I tell them that's not how it's supposed to work. We send our representative from the 25th of Washington. We don't let Washington send us our representative. So I definitely already have a history of defying my party leadership.
There will be no parades. Krista?
What do you feel is the biggest transportation issue that affects the Santa Clarita Valley, and what would you do about it?
Lou, we're going to start with you again.
Well, first thing that comes to mind is high-speed rail, but I don't think that's going to affect the Santa Clarita Valley now, because it's been worked out, and I've been part of the North County Protection Coalition to stop that from having a negative impact through Agua Dulce and Santa Clarita. So I definitely say the 5 and the 14 are the biggest issues. The Antelope Valley is growing exponentially, and the 14 is just getting tighter and tighter. I drive that every day. So I want to go to Congress, be on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and work towards getting funds to expand the freeways and get that taken care of. Because I'm guessing most of you out here are just like me. You sit in traffic a good portion of your life, which can be better spent, whether that's working at your small business or spent with your family. And I understand those issues, and I'll work on them when I get to Congress.
Thank you. Steve?
The T&I committee is one of the most powerful committees, and I applaud Mr. Vince for wanting to be on the committee. Here in Santa Clarita, I think that when you see the Cross Valley Connector, when that opened, it was a huge portion of the Santa Clarita Valley being connected to the other part. But let's face it, if you are going up the 5 and you're going with the trucks up northbound, up toward Magic Mountain, you are going to be stuck most of the time of the day. If you go off to the 14 and you come over the hill, as I have for 30 years of doing this, you are going to be stuck there most of the time of the day. If you're going to go and work on T&I, you're going to have to work on the highway system. And that highway system here in Santa Clarita is as important as probably anywhere in this country. But that 5 and that 14 has to be changed because that is such a major truck artery.
All right.
Would you push for more federal funds to do that?
Absolutely. We are all already been talking about that. We've already been talking about how funding can come into this project.
Yeah, this is an issue of personal importance to me as well. My wife and I both commute to work. We live in Valencia. She takes the metro downtown. I commute to Century City and spend a lot of time sitting on the 5, sitting on the 405. And it's terrible. We have people spending 1 hour, 2 hours or more each way, each day in traffic. That's times away from your family. It's time away from doing the things you really want to do. And so we need to make sure we're bringing federal funds in, more than the Republicans in the House of Representatives have been willing to put forward, making sure that we're expanding the freeways, making sure that we're clearing it up, and making sure that we have a representative in Washington who isn't afraid to fight for more resources to come back to our community.
Those are all interesting answers, but I want you to be a little more specific. What does that mean? Bringing in money for what? What is the answer? How do you solve it? We'll start with you, Brian, and go down the road.
Sure, well, it's what's been talked about here. It includes expanding the highway. That means expanding carpool lanes. We've been working on that. We need to do more. It means bringing in a new lane where possible. It means having perhaps truck lanes that